Welcome to the presentation The Grail is Found, a tour of science and spirituality by Alex Calden. This is the story of a few years of research and a lifetime of wondering. Looking through the histories of the Grail, it appears that the story I'm going to discuss here has been previously lost. We are going to embark on a journey through the steps that I have been through, and hopefully by the end of the presentation you will discover the reality of the Holy Grail, the reality which was known to others who came before us. The presentation is based on my book, The Quest for Truth on Finding the Grail. The book is on sale through my website, www.thequestfortruth.co.uk. We are not going to have a chance to touch on everything inside the book. What will be presented here is the edited highlights. To get a better idea of all the evidence and research which led to the discovery, please do refer back to the book. The story of the Grail is some 1,000 years old, though it could be much longer. Records may have been made and then lost throughout history. The story must have been told and retold by word of mouth from generation to generation over the centuries. The fact that we still have the story with us in the 21st century is little short of a miracle. Fortunately, some written records have survived the passage of time. One of the first recorded stories to feature the Holy Grail that we are aware of was by Robert de Boron, which was written sometime between 1191 and 1202. In his book Joseph d'Arimathie, he tells the story of Joseph of Arimathea who, legend has it, first brought the chalice to England. The story has it that Joseph of Arimathea took the chalice that Jesus used at the Last Supper and collected the blood of Christ as he was dying on the cross. Joseph asked Pontius Pilate if he could have Christ's body after the crucifixion. The wish was granted, and with Mary Magdalene and Mary, Christ's mother, Joseph buried Christ's body in his own prepared tomb. Joseph then took the chalice and Christ's blood to England. One legend has it that Joseph found his way to Glastonbury and left the chalice there. Another early record of the Grail story was Perceval, the Story of the Grail, written by Chrétien de Troyes around 1180 to 1191. In this story, Perceval is staying at the castle of the Fisher King, where the Grail is first revealed to him as a Graal or platter, in a procession of young men and women carrying magnificent objects from chamber to chamber. The Graal bears a communion wafer. Afterwards, Perceval returns to the court of King Arthur. However, although the Grail appeared to Perceval, he lost it again as he was not spiritually grown enough to hold it. In time, Perceval continues his quest for purity and the Grail. It's important to note that this was one of the first associations of the Grail with purity of spirit, a theme which recurs again and again throughout the Grail romances. We are going to find that this spiritual aspect of the Grail has great importance. This Grail was closely linked to the Christian religion, but there is also a Celtic strand to the story. Some tellings of the Arthurian romances have it that Arthur and his knights were Christians, and some say that they were Celts. In the Celtic tales, the Grail was described as a cauldron, which, like the Christian Grail, was thought to have mystical properties. The cauldron could bring about life for dead warriors. Other tales claimed that the cauldron could lead to all knowledge. We could, if we wanted to, spend years researching just this single aspect of the Holy Grail, but that's not what we're going to do here. We're going to pull out some of the common threads from all these Christian and Celtic tales and see if we can make sense of them. So bear with us if we don't spend too much time on the Celtic tradition. The story was carried on through the millennia, being told and retold. Sometimes maybe parts of the story were forgotten, and sometimes perhaps people added new threads. The legend was resurrected again by the pre-Raphaelites at the turn of the 20th century. Alfred Pollard told the story again in his book The Romance of King Arthur and His Knights of the Round Table in 1917. It's clear that the legend and the fascination have never faded away. If anything, the mystery has grown. We all love a secret and a puzzle. This one surely has to be one of the greatest puzzles in history. Is it possible to solve it? Have the facts all been lost in the mists of time, or is it possible for us to penetrate back through history and rediscover the truth? Although there are so many variations of the story, and it is a complicated mix of plots and characters, there are some parts of the story that recur again and again throughout 2 millennia of storytelling. These are what we are calling the spiritual themes of the Grail. The Grail was thought to have a number of mystical powers. They are: provides communication with God, leads to enlightenment, provides all knowledge, is available to all, found by the pure in heart, invisible to evil or unworthy eyes, may call those who are worthy of it, can heal the sick, can feed the poor, decides the future king, provides immortality, may raise the dead, and finally can enlighten the masses. Some of these themes recur more often than others, but we are going to look at them and see if there is anything to be gained from the themes. The question we are asking is, why are these themes here? Were they just parts of fictional stories, or could they have been something more? Is it possible for us to delve back in time and find out what was going through the minds of the people who wrote those stories? They were, after all, real people with real life experiences. What does it all mean? We are going to take a slightly scientific view of spirituality and see if there is some common ground to be found. We are going to make a hypothesis and put it to the test. We are asking whether these spiritual themes are in fact real. If we find proof that they are not real, then that's for the best, but it is worth asking the question. We shall come back to these themes throughout the presentation and see if they have some basis in fact. But before that, we are going to take a look at some of the past interpretations of the Holy Grail. If somebody else has already found the Grail, then we need look no further. So it is going to be convenient to divide the interpretations into 3 distinct groups. They are an ancient relic or other object, the bloodline of Christ, and finally a spiritual path. The first group we are going to take a look at is the interpretation of the Holy Grail as an ancient relic or other object. Now, most of the interpretations of the Grail are as a relic. There is a myriad array of relics which people have claimed are the true Holy Grail. Again, our presentation is not going to give us time to analyse each individual object, so we are going to take an overview of the most common interpretations. In fact, we don't need to look too deeply here, as we shall see in due course, so let's take a lightning tour of some of the Grail relics. As we saw in the story of Percival and the Grail procession, the Grail in that story was a graal or platter, on which was placed a communion wafer. This is the first recorded reference of the word Grail, derived from a corruption of the word Graal. Incidentally, this picture and other pictures of Grails are not necessarily the genuine artefacts. These are used to illustrate the points.